I would like to take a moment and thank our General Vice President, Tom Flynn, who is joining us today to make some opening remarks and regarding the UBC priorities. But I got to tell you, I've known Tommy for probably 30 years, and I do not know anybody that has the political knowledge, intellect, and just tenacity throughout the whole country. I mean, I've been around him a long time, and I watch him operate. And we're very fortunate to have a man in our organization like Tom Flynn. Uh, he works tirelessly. He works endlessly, and honestly, he's one of a kind. And he's offered to help us out with this conference and give us his insight. And we need to pay attention to what Tom's going to say here today, brothers and sisters, because it's important that we pull and listen to his knowledge and his opinions on things and what we got to do to follow up on his comments. So with that, General Vice President Mr. Flynn, my buddy, uh, Tom, it's all yours.
Thank you, Vice President Watercott. Well, thank you so much for the kind words. I will tell you that I'm broadcasting live from 101 Constitution Ave, the home of the Carpenters Union and in our nation's capital. And this is the only safe spot in Washington, D.C. when I come here instead of looking out at the chaos that's over at the Congress and the lack of inactivity and things that are getting done over there. So looking forward to the next 42 days. We were talking briefly before we went live that, how many times have we said that this is going to be the most important election of our lifetime? And we've said it in the past, and, it truly is relevant today more so than ever, that this is the most important election in our lifetime. When we think of the consequences of electing people to elected office that don't share the UBC priorities. But I want to thank everyone on the call this morning. I know the incredible work that you've done so far, and I know the incredible work that you're going to continue to do for the next 42 days to make sure that we elect members that share Carpenter's priorities, right? So, I often get asked the question, how does the UBC make their endorsement on what candidates to endorse? And I also get it from non-members. But I would say that before I get into that, I also want to say that I firmly believe that the Eastern District and the councils in the Eastern District will determine who our next president is, who will be the next Senate Majority Leader, and certainly, without a doubt, who will determine who is the next House Majority Leader, whether it's Hakeem Jeffries or it's Mike Johnson. Those are the choices. Are we going to have people that endorse UBC Carpenter economics, or are we going to endorse people that don't? So that's pretty easy for us to determine how we make our endorsement. That's the criteria that we use. Now, I recognize the people, our members, all across the country. Some of them have different priorities. Some of them, their Second Amendment right might be the most important thing. Some, it might be reproductive rights. When we focus on Carpenter economics, that's our issue. We're going to support people that support us on Carpenter economics. And that's what we talk about all the time. So I just want to say thank you to the people that are doing that. And I'm going to ask you to bear with me for a couple of minutes. So I'm going to ask you to think about where we would be. Think about where the UBC would be. Think about where our members would be. Now, I know that many of you have probably heard from our members that think that they're responsible for everything that they do. The pensions that they get, the wages that they get, whether they graduated from apprenticeship programs, they did it all. They never had any help. They had never had any help from the UBC. They never had any help from the government that might have allowed them to live in public assistance housing when they were younger, that never gave them an opportunity to provide for their family in difficult times and get a government assistance. Many of them, will look less than kind on people that are coming into this country to secure a better life for them and their family, despite the fact that many of their own parents and grandparents came from other countries and wanted to go to the beacon of hope called the United States of America to provide for a better life for their family. And, that's one of the things that we need to talk about. And we do talk about it all the time, that we need to come up with a way to create meaningful immigration reform in order to solve many of the issues that are happening in this country right now. But right now, we can't have a discussion. We can't have a discussion on both sides because nobody wants to address what it's going to take. And we're not talking about opening borders. We're talking about coming up with a game plan on how you address the 20 million, by some estimates, workers that are in this country that are trying to secure a better work environment and a better living for them and their families. So that's just one issue. But I want you to take a minute and think about what life would be. I think, we talk about protecting our pensions. It's about providing good quality health care for ourselves and our family. It's about protecting our apprenticeship programs where people want to join the UBC. I want you to think about what life would be if we had no federal prevailing wage. I want you to think about where we would be if we had no state prevailing wage. When we look at the hours that are covered under prevailing wage, both on the federal level and the state level, it covers about 40% of all the hours that are generated in the United States. Now, in the United States, we've worked consistently over the last number of years. We've worked about 380 million hours with all the councils. Think of what it would be if we eliminated 40% of those hours that are covered under federal prevailing wage. Where would we be as an organization? Where would we be of the quality of life for our members? I want you to think about life would be like if we had no federal prevailing wage and state prevailing wage. I want you to think about where we would be if we had a national right to work law. Where would we be if we had more states repeal the right to work laws in their state like we've done in Michigan? I want you to think about where we would be and where our members would be if we were taxing our health benefits. Because trust me when I say this, there is a huge amount of Republican members of Congress that would love to tax the health benefits that our members so rightly deserve. Think about what that would do to our members. Why would the contractors want to pay and give us the quality health benefits that we've fought for over all these years if they now have to pay taxes on it? But when you have right-wing extremist Republicans that want to give more money to corporate America than they do for the average person that is getting ahead, that's a problem. I want you to think about we're eliminating ERISA, which, by the way, just celebrated its 50th year as a law. Where would we be if we eliminated ERISA? What would that do to our members that work across multiple jurisdictions and have portability of their pensions and health and things that go with it? where would we be? Where would we be if we're lowering the corporate tax rate to 10%? And the average UBC member pays 25% in federal taxes. And we're going to lower the corporate tax rate down to 10%. I want you to think what life would be to have somebody who makes $37,000 a minute. That's right. I said $37,000 a minute, and thinks it's okay to fire workers that have exercised their constitutional right to strike, to be an economic advisor to the President of the United States. Think about that. I want you to think about not investing in infrastructure. I want you to think about not investing in chips and science. I want you to think about where we would be if we create more phony apprenticeship programs. I want you to think about what life would be like for our members and their families under those scenarios. I know when I speak on behalf of the entire General Executive Board, that is not the kind of America that I want to live in. And I know that everyone is going to work tremendously hard over the next 42 days to make sure that that's not the vision that we're going to have for the next 4 years. I want to have a vision that we continue to make investments in infrastructure. When we continue to make an investment in highway, roads and bridges that are creating millions and millions of hours for our members, not only in the Eastern District, but across the country. I want to continue to make investments in the chips and science, like the one that we're going to do in Clay, New York, where we'll have thousands of our members working, carpenters and millwrights, to bring that facility online with Micron and Intel and Global Foundries. Then you look at the investment that we're making all across the Eastern District in wind and solar and renewable energy, so that we don't have a reliance on fossil fuels, so we can move in different directions. But it's a slow transition. So we need to make sure that we continue to do the work that we're doing in those areas, as well as the work that we're doing to get us to transition to that period. I also want to think of where we would be if we're not investing in apprenticeship programs and modernizing our facilities to make sure that we have the state of the art that is out there right now. And we do, without a doubt. The UBC and the apprenticeship programs, 200 apprenticeship training facilities throughout the United States, where we spend an annual amount, $250 million, training the future workers in America. That's what investments are about. That's the kind of America that I want to live in. I'm sure that people on the call want to have the same. So when we look at Republican-controlled chaos, just take a minute to think about what happened yesterday. They couldn't even get the Rules Committee to agree on a continuing resolution that will keep the government funded through December, middle of December. The Democrats will overwhelmingly support a clean bill, a clean CR, with funding levels that were agreed to by Hakeem Jeffries and Kevin McCarthy, and not kowtow to a small group of extremist Republicans that want to make sure that the programs that are in place are absolutely decimated. So that vote will happen. And it will be the same vote that should have happened several weeks ago to make sure that we keep the lights on and keep the government open so that people can continue to get their Social Security checks so that are critically important for so many people in this country. So some of the things that we're also working on, and I know it's important and it's going to create millions and millions of hours for our members and our contractors and keep our industry that is so critically important to our country. We want to make sure that our nuclear facilities continue to thrive. They continue to be economically viable. And you saw news the other day that it looks like Constellation is going to bring back a unit at 3 Mile Island that will help address the needs of the energy crisis in the country. When we look at the data centers that are being created, and they take a tremendous amount of power, we want to make sure that we're building those data centers. We want to make sure that we're providing the infrastructure that is taking place on that campus. So we're also working closely with our end users, with our owners, not only of the nuclear facilities, to make sure that our contractors are well equipped for the training that they need in order to compete in today's economy. We want to make sure that the hydrogen hubs that are proposed by President Biden and supported by Vice President Harris are there. President McCarran has been deeply involved in negotiations with Senator Schumer to make sure that the tax credit number that they agreed to will be sufficient, that will allow these companies to invest in clean hydrogen and clean hydrogen hubs throughout the United States. And I will say this, we had dinner last night with Senator Schumer, and he assured us that they are well on their way to getting close to an agreement that will provide the nuclear industry and the hydrogen community to make sure there are tax credits so they can move forward with those projects, which would be a tremendous success for our members and our contractors. Now, we're also working hard on defense to prevail in Congress to make sure that the programs that we've fought for, that you've fought for so hard for over the years, continue to remain in place. And I know the rest of the General Executive Board are so looking forward to spending time with you over the next 42 days to make sure that we elect members of Congress, senators, President of the United States that shares our goals, that shares your goals, that shares the goals of so many of our members, to make sure that we have the ability to get up in the morning, provide for our family, retire, and live the rest of their life with dignity and a qualified pension. So I look forward to spending time, whether it's on a Zoom call, whether it's doing door knocking, whether it's attending rallies throughout the Eastern District and throughout the United States. As I said, the Eastern District, I believe, will be responsible for electing somebody and putting no pressure on the team in Pennsylvania. But you know what needs to get done in Pennsylvania, and I know that everyone is working hard in Pennsylvania to make sure that we educate our members. We have those difficult discussions, and we elect somebody that is going to have our back for the next 4 years. And that's why the UBC is so proud to endorse Kamala Harris and Tim Walz for President, Vice President of the United States. Thank you very much.